Hey, Kayla. Hi, Ayana.
Welcome to Fill in the Blank podcast.
Welcome.
Get away, it'll be okay, it'll be okay, no place we can go, 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 get away.
Fill in the blank.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week here at Fill in the Blank podcast. Hello, Ayana.
Hi, Kayla.
How are we feeling today?
I'm great. How are you?
We're great. All great because we're back in our guest space. Mm-hmm. And that means that we have a very special guest, somebody that has supported us literally since we have started the podcast. And we just feel very honored to have her. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let Ayana do the introduction because she has brought this lovely woman into our life. And
yes,
I want her to introduce her.
It was all me. She's been supporting me before even the podcast existed. Mm-hmm. But today we have lovely Miss Keresse.
Yes, hi, ladies.
She's a mental health professional. Yes. Well, shoot, honestly, you say all your hats.
Yes, because you have a lot.
There's a lot of hats.
I feel like it's a lot to unpack, but likewise, like I'm just so glad and grateful that we connected. I mean, we kind of had a connection as soon as we, linked up and had Ayana on my podcast. Yes. And I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much. Yes. So that is a lot to unpack. I wear different hats. So first and foremost, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. What that pretty much means is I'm a therapist. Mm-hmm. I also am a podcaster just like you guys. So yes, I am always going to be there to support you guys.
Wait, what's the name of your podcast?
Diary of an Empath.
Mm-hmm. If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know. Yeah. So I'm definitely your number one supporter with that. Yeah. And I think overall my mission and my goal is just to help people as much as possible. I'm a healer and that's kind of what I'm here to do.
And this is why you are here because you are so You are so aligned with us. So as she mentioned, I was on her podcast before. Mm-hmm. She's the only podcast that I've talked about my divorce with. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people reached out to me to ask like, hey, do you want to do an interview? And Keresse was the only person that I felt not only comfortable with, but safe with. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, this is the winner. This is the only one I'm going to do. And anything outside of that is just going to be my podcast. So that's how I met Keresse. Mm-hmm. Wait, did you reach out to me?
I did. And I think it just aligned well because originally I reached out to you before anything about the divorce was announced. So this was prior to that. And then I remember when I heard about it, my first thought was, let me make sure that she's comfortable with it. Because if you didn't want to talk about it, I wasn't going to bring it up. Yeah. So my first thought was like, let me just make sure that you're safe, that you're comfortable, because I don't want you to talk about anything that you're not comfortable speaking with. But if you wanted a platform to be safe and be vulnerable, that's kind of like, I just want to pride myself. And I know you guys align with that. I'm being, very empathetic to the guests that come on because at the end of the day, we're human. And I think that there's a lot of platforms that can easily go off track with that just for the likes and the numbers and the comments. Man. And when you start doing stuff that doesn't align with who you are, with your purpose, that's kind of what you attract. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be attracting that kind of stuff. So I'm just really grateful that, you felt safe enough. And that's like a huge compliment because I just am so grateful that you even came on my platform to do that. And I'm just even happier that you felt safe doing so.
Yeah, I think it was the way that you did present it to me like, hey, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can. And this is a safe space. And when you said it, I felt it. I was like, okay.
I felt like you went through enough already. That was my thing. It's like, being on a reality TV show, I know that there's pressure. I haven't been through that, but I can only imagine. I'm like, I'm not going to create another space for you to feel pressure again. Yeah. Like you already went through enough. And then you're going through like another situation where there's kind of like some drama involved and everyone kind of wants to take. Yeah. Let me get a little piece of you. Let me get a little piece of, the drama. And I just didn't want to create a space like that.
I remember during our interview where you simply just asked, how are you? Mm-hmm. And I was like, no one hasn't asked me that. Like no one, no interviewers, no one's asked like, are you good?
Mm-hmm. I feel like we don't get asked that question enough. When we do, we're not always honest.
Right. But I was going to say, it made me think that it was the intention of how you asked, how are you? Because people will very, often just be like, oh, how are you? Like very quick. But when people like sit and they actually look at you like, no, like, how are you? Like, it's the way that you say it to like let someone know that you genuinely care about how they're doing, and to get them to be in a space that they can openly answer it with intention, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, oh, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, divorces and relationships are hard as it is, but then you're doing it in a public platform. That's like a whole other layer of stress on that.
I was getting my ass beat.
Man.
It was just
for the public to watch, too.
And still watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I think people feel like they have a level of investment and a level of entitlement because they've invested in watching the story unfold. And to a point, I'm like, I can understand why people would want to know. But on the other hand, you're still entitled to privacy. You're still entitled to share what you want to share.
I agree. I think people forget that, like, yes, I signed up to be on a reality TV show. I signed up for love. Should have did it for money. I'm just playing. But I signed up for love. And what I showed on the TV show is what I'm open to show. Anything outside of that, you're not entitled to.
Yeah.
But people feel like they know me, which I get. I understand. But they forget that, like, they don't actually know me. I'm technically a stranger to you. And you wouldn't just walk up to some random shit and be like, hey, so how's it been since your divorce? Like...
I will say, too, though, on the other flip of the coin, I think you're so relatable to so many people, and you're naturally, like, what you see is what you get. And I can say from meeting you in person, from, you know, talking to you, you are who you are and unapologetically you. And I think people are attracted to that. And so on that flip of the coin to, like, you know, from a positive note, I think people feel like they know you, so they want to know more of what's going on.
I agree, which is why I give people the grace. Of course, there are people who are just plain rude. But for most people, I give them the grace. I was just talking about that today at work because I'm going through this thing where I'm trying to find some form of an accommodation because people are crossing my work boundaries and, like, trying to talk about my personal business in front of, like, and it's just too much for me. Like, at least work, I'm like, boundaries, please.
Yeah. Boundaries are important.
But I was like, God darn it, like, why do I have to be so approachable? So approachable. But it's okay.
It's a gift and a curse. Like,
It's a gift and a
you're
curse.
empathic, and
It's a gift and a curse.
It's going to serve you well in so many capacities. I can relate. I'm the same way. But boundaries are, it's a skill set that you got to continuously work on.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But I'm not saying.
Especially when you want to help people and be there. And then, like, we often talk about being, like, people pleasers. And so that makes it even harder to kind of put your foot down.
Because there is an element where I want, especially people who follow the podcast, I want people to be able to come up to me and be like, hi, oh my God, like, I love listening to your podcast. You guys have been so helpful, all that stuff. It's just when it comes to stuff with the show.
Yeah, it's hard too, because I think that, like, as empaths, we were talking about this earlier, how when we're kind of naturally people pleasers and we are really empathetic towards other people, I think sometimes we can attract people who need to be healed. And then sometimes we think we can be the one to fix them.
And sure. Wait. Because I feel like we're going to get into the topic. We're not ready for that yet. First, I want to do feelings forecast.
Oh, okay.
Because I have some news to share. You have some stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, Kayla?
Grad school. I mean,
Kayla's like, same old. I'm
that's
still
my
in the
life.
trenches.
I'm in school.
Then
I hate it here.
the
And
trenches.
I'm told not to complain, so I'm going to shut up now. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. You can't complain this month.
Right.
You should be able to. You need to vent.
They told me that
not
I need
Kayla.
to stop.
Not Kayla. Kayla overindulges when it comes to complaining.
It has become a part of
It's
my personality.
debilitating.
So that's the bad part. Like, I think that it's a part of, like, the way that I joke about things, but also at the same time, it's just like, it's a little much. Like, I need to be more intentional about how I'm speaking. And so I think that it is a little bit of overindulgence and me taking it too far sometimes and just constantly, like, joking and complaining about stuff. But there's also truth behind it too. So it's like,
we're trying to work on the positivity.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the positivity. It's like, vent by all means, but, like, also change your outlook just a little bit.
Okay, we're rewording things and
rewording
rewiring.
things. Yes, you see?
so I'm in grad school, but I'm almost done. Positivity.
There you go.
I love that for you. What's been going on with me? Did I update last time on my vagina?
You did.
Okay.
You did. I mean, well, no, I don't know if you shared about the catheter being taken out.
I did, because we filmed on...
Taking out, though?
I did.
Okay.
Well, I still can't wear jeans. I mean, technically, I feel like I can, but I'm terrified. And I keep looking at my hoo-ha in the mirror.
Yeah.
Make sure everything's okay.
That's scary. I have had so many times that I've FaceTimed Diana and I can tell.
What are you looking at on the FaceTime?
Her face, but I know the setup of her apartment. And so I could tell she's on the floor in front of the mirror. And I'm like, are you on the floor looking at your vagina?
Yes.
And she's like, yes,
I am.
That's friendship.
Yes, I am. She saw it.
Hey.
She saw.
That's okay.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm so fascinated with showing people. I'm like, do you want to see? Do you really want to see? Because it was crazy.
No, it was crazy.
I'm
it had
so
a
sorry.
life of its own.
Oh.
It is etched into my memory. I cannot
You can't
get
unsee
Ayana's
it.
vagina out of my mind. It's just there.
There's a lot of guys that are probably going to listen to this now and be like, you need a friend?
Look, you don't want to see that. You do not want to see that. It was bad. It was bad. But the end of my health issues are done.
Yeah.
Good.
Hopefully forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're speaking over.
Yeah. But
Never
other than
again.
that, my week's been great.
That's great.
Sunshine and rainbows.
I love that.
I know. I love that too. Okay. Well, how's your week been?
Oh man. Well, thank you for asking. It's been a little chaotic for me. So I had surgery 2 weeks ago, and this journey kind of started a couple months ago, and I just had this strong intuitive feeling that something wasn't right in my body.
Because
I know. And, I was really bloated. I was getting like weird uterine pressure, but I also have an IUD. So I'm like, oh, it could be the IUD, but something just kept telling me, circling back, something's off, something's off. And I had a feeling it was my ovaries. I don't know why. I just had a feeling. I just knew.
That gut intuition.
I just kept seeing things on TV, and then I'm like, I would get this weird pressure, and I'm like, something's off, and I feel like it's ovarian or something going on in that area. And so I had to push for my doctors to get an ultrasound because they didn't want to give me one.
Do not.
Why
They don't
do
offer
that?
those up. Very
They are like, you're
easily.
37, you're not really at high risk. And I'm like, actually, ovarian cancer runs in my family. They're like, yeah, but unless you're having like some really, really strong pains, we don't really see it necessary. And finally,
That's the issue.
It's like, why does it have to get to that point?
It's like
in order
medical
for you to just check it
gaslighting.
out?
Yeah. And I feel like because as women, we're kind of taught to, well, you're supposed to endure pain giving childbirth and period. So they
you can
kind of
handle
expect it from us.
Yeah.
So when I finally pushed for it and we did it, they found a mass on my ovary.
Wow.
And we ended up scheduling the surgery because it was a solid mass. And they did the surgery and they couldn't save my ovary. So they took the ovary, they took the fallopian tube, and they took the mass out.
Oh, they took all.
They took all of it.
Oh, wow.
Because once it gets to a certain size, it's just going to it's either going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And then they said it could turn into cancer later. I said, then take it.
Yeah,
just
take it.
Take it out.
Yeah.
So that was 2 weeks ago. So I'm still kind of like recovering. I feel like my body goes through trauma, like anything surgical, and I just need time to recover.
I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And you were put under, you said did they put you under
Oh yeah,
anesthesia?
it's general anesthesia.
Oh.
But I almost wanted to be like, I told you so. Like
Yeah.
you should, like you got to listen to.
I would have
you have
said,
to
I would have
listen
said,
to
I told you
people.
so.
And
And
have to
like I
listen.
said,
It's what's crazy is here's the thing that got me the most is that even they replaced my IUD because I was already under, right? And here's what I found out that really blew my mind is that women usually don't get any type of pain meds for IUD insertion. And for some
passed
women,
out.
yeah, I passed out too. It's very, very intense with pain for some women. I found out from my GYN that at least where I go to, that if you request to be sedated, they can sedate you, but typically they don't tell you that. It's like the expectation that we're supposed to deal with those types of things, and it's just normal and natural.
that's why I was
horrible.
terrified to go to the ER because I saw a lot of women in my comments. There's a pro and con to sharing on social media, but a lot of women in my comments were saying like, I didn't have any anesthesia when they cut me open, and I was like, and I probably should have gone to the ER on like Saturday or Sunday, and I didn't go until I don't know, Monday, Tuesday.
It was like Tuesday.
Wow.
It was bad. And at that point, it was really bad. I couldn't stand longer than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It was like really bad. But yeah, that's crazy.
Well, I feel like women are gaslit, but in particular, women of color are gaslit even more.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
another reason
like,
why I was
even if you look at the stats, I can't remember. I was looking it up, and I want to say it's like 34% of women are gaslit in the community or given less pain meds than their white counterparts or male counterparts, and then women of color even more so.
Yeah.
And so it's really a phenomenon that needs to change because their expectation is that we can deal with the pain or that we should be dealing with the pain. But if it was a guy that came in to the ED with a cyst on his penis, I'm sure they would have knocked him out or something, you know. And unfortunately, I feel like women have to deal with that even more.
I think it's also an ageism thing too, because I feel like being young, like if you're younger, then they also kind of, like you said, like they'll brush it away, like, oh, well, you're this age and you're not really at risk for X, Y, and Z. It's not typical that you would experience those kind of things at that age. And so you end up with people who end up like, it makes me think about like kind of what happened with my mom. Like that was her story of how she ended up passing away is because she was going to the doctor trying to get medical attention for what was going on with her. And they kept misdiagnosing her because she had colon cancer really early on. That's crazy. And so they're like, oh, it's typically in people that are 50 or older. So they would not run the test on her. Wow. For her to receive the medical attention. So that when they found it, she was at stage 4 already.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I follow a girl, her name's Coco Beauty, and she went through something very similar like a couple weeks before me, and she was posting about it. What I found interesting is she's from Croatia. So when she goes back home, I said, how did you find the cyst? And I was like, oh, it was like my annual pelvic ultrasound. I'm like, wait a minute. You guys do ultrasounds annually and you're only 30? She's like, yeah, that's normal. I'm like, here it's not.
I've never gotten an ultrasound.
You don't, not unless there's a problem or you're at a certain age. Yeah. Other than that, it's not something that's really done here in the U.S. Money.
It's the money.
I agree.
It's the money.
And that's really sad that that's what's put over people's well-being.
People,
that we prioritize that.
People overseas think it's wild the way our health insurance works.
I agree.
It is wild.
It is wild.
It is wild.
I want to quit my job so bad. And the one thing that's holding me back is the fact that I would have to pay my own health insurance.
And it's expensive.
It's so expensive.
It's so expensive. Did you know that this is what I found out? And I don't know how true this is, but this is just what I was being told. That when you get a breast mammogram, if you have dense breast tissue, which essentially means it's like looking for cancer in a dark cloud, you should be getting a sonogram if you have dense breast tissue. But there are some states where they are not required to tell you that you have dense breast tissue. Therefore, you would not be getting the sonogram, and therefore cancer could be missed. Yeah. And so to me, that's wild. That's wild if that's the case.
I did not know that. That's wild.
This is America.
Because I only found out because they told me you have dense breast tissue, so we need to get a sonogram. And it wasn't until I got the sonogram that they found the lump in my breast.
Wow.
And then I got the biopsy, which was benign, thank God. But my mammogram was normal.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So women's health in this country, I think, is a huge problem.
It's a huge
pretty
issue.
bad. I mean, even when you talk down to like childbirth and how many women actually pass away through childbirth.
Yeah.
We're in modern age right now.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That shouldn't even be a problem at this point.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to have another kid, but I don't want to go through the pregnancy.
I'm terrified.
I'm terrified again.
Of pregnancy, of childbirth. I feel like I'd be a soldier and try to like, you know. But even still, just the thought of it is terrifying, especially the medical aspect where they're probably not giving you the information that you need. Yeah. They're not treating you properly. And I'm a Black woman.
It's hard on the body.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I have one and I'm good with her, and she's 14, so it's like it's easy. I don't have to I don't got to worry about my sleep anymore.
Right.
I couldn't picture having another one, but don't get me wrong, being a mother's great, but like, you know, even going through like I've had miscarriages, I've gone through all that, and when you go through these feminine issues, it's like I just don't want to be touched anymore.
Yeah. You're like, leave me alone.
I'm so scared to have sex. That's a lot. I'm sorry. I just want to say I am so scared to have sex now. I just don't know what's going to happen.
You got to take your time.
It's like, what if this thing comes back?
I mean, you can always try on your own first.
I will be trying. I wanted to do that. I was like, it's been weeks. Yeah. But then I was like, but
weeks,
this incision is still
years. You don't even want to know on this side. It's been so long. No. Years. Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while. I've been single for even longer, but that has been a long time. Or first of all, it's Orlando. It's like the bottom of the barrel when it comes to.
And I thought Chicago was bad. I'm pretty sure Orlando.
I can imagine Orlando being way worse.
It is the bottom of the barrel, and even just like trying to find a connection, even an attraction, is just non-existent there. I hate speaking that into the universe, but I want a man. Like I'm ready for a relationship,
right?
And I cannot even find a date.
Have you thought about moving?
Oh man. So I used to live here. I was actually born and raised in Chicago, but
Yeah.
I left when I was 14. I couldn't imagine coming back. And I love living in Florida. You know, it's a good place to live. It's just not a good place to date. I don't know. Maybe when my daughter gets into college or something.
Is there any other state that you would look at to consider moving to?
California.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, not LA though.
Okay.
Not
I was
LA.
like, really?
Yeah.
It's the weather.
It's so nice
my
out there.
God,
So
it's like
nice.
It's hard.
paradise.
After living in Orlando, I could never imagine coming to live in cold Chicago.
Yeah. I
Are you
wouldn't come
kidding
back.
me?
I mean,
No.
growing up in the South and then moving to like Boston or something was a lot for me. And I was like, why would anyone do this?
In the
And
city's
there I
too
was doing
much.
it.
It's
a
too much
lot.
energy for me.
It's a lot.
I need my peace. I need my nature. I need, you know, because
Yeah.
like I'm an empath. I have to have like nature.
That's what I said.
need
And if
it.
you look around, there's no nature here. There's no place nearby to go hiking. You have to go to another state.
Yeah,
That's
I couldn't
crazy
do
to me.
Yeah.
I
My
couldn't
biggest
do
thing
it.
is water. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
I need water. I feel very at peace just being next to water, being on the water.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing that I need. I've never been the type of person though, which is really funny, to feel at peace in nature because I can't do bugs. So if I see a bug fly, there's peace over. Like, this is bad.
I would
go.
love to see you just like camping or something because I feel like that would be pure comedy.
That would be
Kayla.
comedies.
It would be
entertainment.
horrible.
First of all, if she had to wipe her ass with anything other than tissue, I would.
God forbid.
I would purposely hide the tissue. I would like
I
dig
would
a
pack
hole
up
for you.
and
Like, there you
leave.
go, Kayla.
No.
I would just. Oh God.
I'd hop in
with
the
her.
car and be
I
out.
would love to see
Gone.
that.
When I was
would
in the
love to
Marine
see that.
Corps, like sometimes we had no choice because we would be out training in like the woods, and I've had my fair share of having to take.
You
a shit
can't
in the
go
woods.
like, can I do a potty break? They don't let you.
Sometimes, yeah, you can, but I mean, you have to get in where you can fit in. So sometimes, if you got 5 minutes, you got 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
I've been in the woods. It's the worst. It was the worst.
What?
Let's just say, like that was. I would never go back in. Thank God,
Yeah.
I'm out.
You're like, thank God, that's over.
It's done.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Well, let's transition now into the topic because I like this little
No,
conversation.
it was good. It was
I love
great.
this little combo.
Yes.
Okay, where do I even want to start? So you're a mental health professional.
Yes.
What made you want to do that?
So I was in the Marine Corps, and I saw a lot of people that I served with deal with like major mental health problems. And I actually never knew anybody in my life. Like I never dealt with grief. And I never knew anyone who died until I was in the military. And I lost more people that were friends to suicide than anything else. It was crazy, you know? And so when I started to see that after I got out, I'm like, you know, I really want to do something that is going to be able to help people in some way. And I had an interest in psychology. And I became a social worker more so because I knew that there was going to be lots of different options. I didn't know what population I was going to work with, and I ended up working with vets. But I think as time went on, we were speaking a little bit before the show on like, you know, purpose and, you know, kind of like, where do I go from here? I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I'm like, I'm going to be a therapist. That's all I want to do. And then it's funny how life kind of takes you down different paths. And then I started to question my entire career. Like, do I want to keep doing this? Because I feel like I'm not making a big enough difference.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I got into my spiritual work and my own spiritual awakening, I started seeing how the component of my background as a therapist and then adding in the spiritual component of my spiritual work, I was seeing these people that were transforming their lives and having years and years of trauma. And now all of a sudden, for the first time, they're seeing light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And I started thinking like, I think this is what I'm meant to do. And I always liked speaking to people. And so when I started my podcast and I would get messages like, oh, this episode helped me leave my abusive narcissist relationship, or this episode helped me realize that I need to change stuff about myself so I don't make the same choices in relationships.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I've made these choices. Like, I'm not exempt from this. Like,
But I think that makes you the best teacher.
Yes.
yeah, and I'm still learning too.
Yeah.
Like I always tell like my clients, my listeners, like, listen, there are times when I have to check myself.
Yeah.
So you going through this, I think my biggest takeaway is like you're not alone.
Yeah.
And things kind of like just naturally started aligning once I got onto the path that I'm like, okay, I think this is part of what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of led me to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for you because something that is interesting is that we're both empaths and you're in mental health. what does it look like for you to not carry the emotions of what people are sharing with you? Because I've done a pretty good job at it, I feel like, so far, but I have one student just recently that really triggered me. And I don't know, maybe it was because I normally work with a lot of young women, and this was the first time I was working with a boy, and to see him emotional, it really like impacted me. And I was shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was just singing my own. I was singing my own praises and telling everyone, because everyone's like, oh, Kayla, you're so sensitive. I can't believe that you can even like do this without bursting into tears. But it was something about him that like the rest of the day I had to just like stop, because I had to shed his emotions that carried over onto me. And so I just really wonder about that. Like, what does that look like when you are an empath and then you're trying not to carry the emotions of the clients that you're working with?
That's a great question. I don't think there's like one good answer for that. What I can say is that, number one, it's a beautiful thing of being an empath, because you are able to understand the emotions of others, where other people, they may be able to sympathize with it, but they may not fully be able to understand. And when you have that type of understanding, you realize what you can do more so to help that person, and you have a desire to help that person. With that being said, you're also human, right? So there's nothing wrong with having those emotions. I think a lot of people are told like, oh, you're too sensitive, or you're this, or you're that. And I say that it's a gift to be so sensitive.
It is.
You just have to learn tools to put in your toolbox in order to be able to cope with those emotions when they come up, and to understand sometimes it's not your feelings that you're feeling. Sometimes it is the emotions of others. So now what can I do if I know that this is going to be a day that is going to be some heavy shit, or this is going to be a day that like I really am feeling like super low? Then you just need to know like, okay, what do I feel good with? What helps me to recharge? Whether that's, taking time to yourself, which is essential as an empath. You got to recharge. I know you don't like bugs, but nature is really good for that.
Maybe just not like in the woods, like where they're the big bugs.
Right. No,
I can do the little tiny ones, but I can't do the big flying ones like in your face.
Meditation, here, I used to be that person like, what the hell is breathing going to do for me?
That's what I even when it comes to manifestation, I'm like, what is that going to do for me?
So, here's the thing. We come into the world with breath. We leave the world with breath. And there's a lot of science that shows that when you're being mindful of the breath that you're taking in, that you're being mindful of, what's around you, that it helps with cardiovascular, it helps with, your heart rate, it helps with anxiety. But more so, it allows you to listen, because we're so busy with like distractions, social media, Instagram, people around you, take. You have to create space for yourself to be able to listen, whether that's listening to your higher self, listening to, whatever you believe in, source, God, your spirit guides. And sometimes that's just a way to just slow down for a second in a world that's constantly sped up. And so meditation can be a really great way for healers, for empaths, just to kind of like slow down and recharge the energy. But also doing things that you find joy in. What intrinsically motivates you? And when I say intrinsic, we have like intrinsic motivation and we have extrinsic. So extrinsic is like you have to go to your job because you got to pay the bills. You want the health insurance, right?
I do.
Intrinsic motivation is what you're doing right now. You're doing this podcast because you enjoy talking to people. You enjoy learning. You enjoy what you're getting out of it. So that motivates you to continue to want to do more of this. So you have to find ways to do more things that intrinsically motivate you to fill your cup. Because if you're starting your cup off full every day, but the first thing you do is open your phone, you're literally exposing your energy to the world. The first thing that you do when you wake up. So here's a little bit out of your cup. Now someone's, hey, Ayana, I need this from you. I need that from you. Here's a little bit more out of your cup. And take. So you're pouring out. At the end of the day, if you only have a little bit left in your cup and you're doing nothing to refill that cup, you're going to feel drained. You're going to feel overwhelmed. And to add to that, everything is energy. We know that energy is measurable. The way that we're talking right now is through energy. Have you ever met someone where like you just don't know them, but you're like, I don't know what it is about this person. I just get bad vibes.
Yep.
Okay, so that's vibrations. Like you're picking up on a lower vibration than maybe where you're at, and you just kind of feel that. Vibrations are very real. So if you're always around that, which as a healer, as an empath, you probably are going to attract people and relationships sometimes that they need healing. And you may feel as a healer like, oh, I can fix that person. Or you're just so compassionate that you're so understanding of why they are the way that they are that you naturally want to help them. But that kind of takes away some of your energy. So boundaries is another thing for empaths. You got to have good boundaries.
Yeah.
So again, just having those tools in your toolbox, being aware that you are sensitive to that. And you may have to be particular about the people that you allow into your life, the relationships that you allow into your life, or just have tools to refill your cup.
Yes. That is so important for me. I've learned so much of that over the years. And I feel like I got really serious about that kind of around like the pandemic time when everything
you were forced
started
to shed.
Yeah, when I was forced to shed, but I really took that time to do like some inner work, and I looked at the people that I had around me, and I was like, I don't know, like if this is a reflection of who I see myself as. Like, I don't know if these connections are necessarily what I would want to portray like as myself. Like just thinking about like the idea of like you are the company that you keep, and you want to be around people who fill your cup just as much as you fill theirs. And like when I went through that shedding period, as hard as it was, the people that came back to me like that I didn't know that I needed, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know friendship looked like this all the way. Like I had like 2 really great friends. Like one of them is my cousin and then the other one is my best friend from high school. We went to high school together and then college. But like, other than that, it was just like.
Did you lose friends? Do you felt like when you started going through that, like, did you lose friends?
Everybody.
Same.
Like a lot of friends. It started, the change started with me like leaving my last relationship. And then that kind of helped to up my standards, to realize like I've been really lowballing myself and I've been allowing so many people to have access to me that don't deserve me and they don't deserve my spirit. And because I'm an empath and because I'm sensitive and all of that, I have to be so particular to make sure that I'm safe, you know? Like I have to protect my energy and protect my heart. So, but yeah, I lost a lot of like friendships and people that I thought were going to be around like forever. And so it's crazy. And even to this day, it's something that I have to like process with. Like every once in a while, I'll sit around and think about it like, wow, like that's wild. Like that's crazy. Look where you are now. Though. I know.
I think COVID forced people to slow down for the first time. And a lot of people started evaluating their happiness. Like I went through the same thing. There were people in my life who I was so hurt because of how things ended up or how they ghosted me or how they, you know, just completely made their exit. And for me, I'm like, damn, can I at least get a conversation? I feel like I'm deserving of those things. But then I had to think about it from a different perspective. The universe is guiding people away from me that don't belong in my life. And some people, they will be there for a chapter of that book. They're just not meant to be there their entire book, but they may play their purpose, whether it's like learning lessons from that person or learning lessons about yourself. In your case, you learned lessons about yourself. I need to protect my peace. I need to protect my energy. And had you have not gone through some of those friendships, you may not be the person you are today. Like I went through, you know, abusive situations. I was in like some really nasty, toxic relationships. I had some friendships that were just take. And I look back at it, and as hurtful as it was, I'm grateful that I went through those journeys, because now, look, I get to meet people like you guys. I'm naturally meeting people
that you're more aligned with.
Yes. And who appreciate my energy and who are like, I tend to get along with people who are more empathic because they actually know how to communicate.
Heavy on that.
So true.
When you know how to communicate, it's actually really difficult to have someone close to you who doesn't know how.
It's attractive too. Like, especially when it's the other person. I think we talked about this. Emotional intelligence is so attractive. I can't remember what I said, but emotional vulnerability does not equate to emotional availability.
Yes.
And it's so true.
Oh, yes. Sorry. It's like my brain took a second to process it. Yes. That is so. Okay. Random question, because my brain's doing things. For those who, because I'm sure some people, I hear the term empath all the time, but what truly is an empath, and what separates an empath from just someone who can be naturally sympathetic? Okay,
so I'm going to give the clinical answer, and I'm going to also kind of tie in, the spiritual part. Because I think a lot of people, they hear empath and they think that's like just some spiritual mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
But in clinical terms, we call it a highly sensitive person. And this is somebody who doesn't just connect on, like, oh, I feel sorry for you. Oh, you lost your mom. I'm so sorry. No, this is someone who you can usually pick up on the feelings of others. And sometimes when we look back to childhood, and this is not always the case, but oftentimes if somebody was exposed to a chronically stressful situation, whether it's trauma, toxicity in the home, where their nervous system, that fight or flight system that tells us either we're going to fight to survive or we're going to flee, right? If that nervous system is constantly activated, for a kid, obviously, like, it's not like someone's attacking you, but if you're chronically stressed out, your nervous system is trying to protect you. So you're going to do what you can to survive. Survival as a child who's in a chronically stressful situation or trauma might look like, are they stepping in the house hard? Are they, does their tone of voice, is it
start to pick up on all
the little things.
Right. How is their face looking? How are their facial expressions? Are they walking towards me fast? So you will pick up on those little teeny tiny cues that other people may not pick up on. So now you take this into years and years of young adulthood and you take this into relationships. This may now look like someone picking up on the smaller things that someone typically wouldn't pay attention to. How are they texting me? Oh, they texted in this way, or they spoke to me in this way, or they typically speak to me in this tone of fashion, but now something's off. So you may be picking up on subtle cues that other people are not, and sometimes to your benefit, again, because that nervous system, if that's how you were shown love or you associated an activated nervous system with love, that may now look like going into relationships that are a little toxic, or maybe it's like, oh, I feel those butterflies, but that actually is your nervous system that's activating, that's kind of telling you something's off. And then sometimes you may find when you meet a stable person, not always, but sometimes you may find you meet someone stable, they're not activating that nervous system. There's just something about him. I think he's just a little boring.
Oh my God. We've talked about this. We
constantly have this conversation because
there's a huge shift.
That was the hardest transition for me when me and my fiance connected, because of the fact he was so stable. And I was like,
it's so different.
What is going on? And I literally went to counseling because I was like, I cannot mess this up. This is a good man. And I'm going to screw
good
it.
Man, Savannah. It's a good man.
I was like, I'm going to screw this up because I am so used to being in toxic relationships where my feelings are a roller coaster, up and down constantly. Then now that I have a stable emotion,
it feels off.
I'm like,
well, not only with that, it's not just the nervous system. Our brain literally rewires itself when you're in an abusive or toxic situation, because when you're with somebody who's triggering the dopamine and the oxytocin and all of those neurotransmitters that are like, that reward system in the brain. So when somebody is, giving you all of this love and flooding you or love bombing you and doing all these things, it feels good. But then if it's all of a sudden it's taken away, it's like you're not getting that flood of dopamine. But then it's being given to you all of a sudden. It's like dangling the carrot again. And that flood of dopamine comes back. So it literally, toxic situations literally become addicting.
It makes me think about, these are extreme situations, but it makes me think about people who end up in like things like Colton and like even I'm in Chicago, but even like the R. Kelly victims, and people are like, how could they but it's people don't understand the power of manipulation and what that actually, and no one thinks about the brain chemistry that's involved. Like it's literally altering things for you.
Not only that, but like no one goes into an abusive or toxic situation being like, that's my guy from the beginning. This is happening subtly, like subtle things that are being done and dripped in over time. And then by the time you actually realize like, oh shit, I've lost my friends, or, I'm in this toxic situation, it becomes that much harder to get out of. I mean, if it was that easy to leave an abusive or toxic situation, nobody would be in one.
No,
there'd be a lot of more dead men.
Yes, for sure.
Everybody would leave.
And
then when you look up and you realize that you've lost yourself, so you don't even have necessarily the same type of emotional intelligence that you had at the beginning to know that this is bad. It takes a lot of times outsiders constantly telling you this is bad, for it to start to sink in. And then you realize like, oh, this doesn't actually feel good. Like this sucks.
And even then.
Yeah. And then sometimes too, like, you know, if you're with a person who is abusive or manipulative or, you know, a narcissistic relationship, that's kind of what they want.
Yeah.
You know, they want to keep you in that cycle, and they do little things like that to keep you in that cycle of abuse. They don't want outsiders in the relationship. They want to keep you as sucked in as possible so you continue to feed their supply and what they need with their ego.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately, you have to get to a place, and I'm by no means saying that, you know, it's the victim's fault or they need to do something. Because sometimes, you know, finances, kids, like there's so many things that can keep people in these relationships. But you have to get to a point where you take your own healing as like a priority.
Yeah.
Because even if you get out of the relationship or the situation, it's your responsibility to heal.
Yeah.
You have to say and make a decision like, I am going to put myself first, my healing first. And that might mean I got to take some responsibility into my own healing, whether that's like learning about your attachment style, learning about your behaviors and traits and why you do things that you do, therapy, whatever that is for you. And that's not always easy. Sometimes people are not ready for that.
People don't like to look at I didn't like to look at myself in the mirror. Like, wow.
It's the hardest thing because you have to get very real with yourself. And a lot of times it requires you, like we were just kind of having this conversation, but it requires you to sink to another level of rock bottom than what you might already be at. And it's dark and it's scary to hit that space. But I always say, and I try to tell this to anybody who's going through that, is that when you hit rock bottom, you know that's when you're about to go to the next level. Yeah. A breakthrough comes very soon after rock bottom if you take it seriously. So if you know that you want to grow and you hit rock bottom, it's something positive coming out of that.
How do you know you're at rock bottom? Because I know
it won't feel good.
You'll feel it.
Okay, so I haven't felt good for majority of my life. So that's why when I kept going lower and lower, I was like, okay, at what point am I gonna hit rock bottom? And I don't think it helps that like in a lot of those situations, shame is such a heavy emotion, and no one talks about how hard it is to just forgive yourself from all those things. Because I know simply forgiving myself was standing in the way of like my healing for a long time. And then eventually I realized like, give yourself some grace. And at that point is when I started to
come up,
finally elevate.
Yeah.
But
when you're facing that stuff, like sometimes you're facing shit that you haven't faced in your entire life.
Yeah.
So that if you're constantly kind of brushing things under the rug, I mean, because think about it, trauma, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So what do? We avoid. We avoid anything that makes us feel like crap. Nobody wants to feel like sad every single day.
Nope.
But that's why some people use drugs and they use alcohol. They use things to mask. Sometimes people will get into toxic relationships to mask their pain from, you know, whatever they went through as a child. There's so many things that we do because we're human and we don't want to feel those things. And so if you're feeling those things and it's uncomfortable, it's normal, but you also have to make sure that like you're setting yourself up for success, which means that, you know, do you have someone you can go to when you're having these feelings? Do you have someone that can process these feelings with you, like a therapist? Like what do you have in your toolbox to make sure you're not spiraling down that cycle? And that's part of the healing journey.
it took me decades to, well, clearly I'm only 20 something, but it took me decades to
I'm
learn
still
that.
doing it. I'm still doing it.
And it's always a relearning
It's ongoing.
process. It's ongoing. I remember shortly after my sexual assault, I was definitely like piling things on as far as like how to cope. And there was a long period of time where I was like over sexualized and I thought I was fine. No one talks about that. No one. People assume that like a lot of sexual assault victims like go straight into like, don't touch me. But I went to full blown over sexualized. And then I started basically re-traumatizing myself. And then there was more trauma added on because of the way that I was coping. And eventually I had to get to a point of like forgiving myself for all of that and then trying to move forward. But
it's the shame portion
it's the
too.
shame.
But then it's society that tells us that, well, you're a woman, you're supposed to be a good girl, you're not supposed to do all this. I had one guy that I went on a podcast, and the question that he asked me really bothered me. he said something about, as a woman, do you feel like your market value goes down?
Your market value?
I'm like, what? Come again? If you sleep with multiple people, I'm like, okay, let's back this up.
Right.
So are you am I an item at a store?
Right.
And,
what is
and why
value?
and why is it that a woman's quote unquote market value goes down if she chooses to sleep with multiple people, but a man's doesn't? And then you see all this like masculine versus feminine, and you're, as a woman, you should be within your divine feminine, and that means being submissive and this and that. Like, I'm like, come on, there's no black or white, but society tells us we're supposed to be one way. And so it's, of course, women are feeling shame.
Yeah.
And then you throw in a sexual assault in the mix, and it's like, now you don't even know what is supposed to be normal for you.
Man.
It's and it's so confusing. It's like, well, am I not supposed to be sexual? Am I supposed to be sexual?
Yes.
And I think too, it's a level of like, okay, I want intimacy, but finding that intimate connection with someone is even harder nowadays too. So it's like layer after layer of just, it's hard.
The hardest part is like getting out of your head, Like for me, I found that it was the getting out of my head thing. That
when you say getting out of your head,
like in sexual experiences,
you
constantly
mean like
just
during?
living in my head, like not being in the moment because of previous experiences. I can't just like release and be present, like just be there.
Yeah.
So that part is that is a lingering effect that I have found, that it just like.
Were you ever in a place where, or with a partner, that you felt completely free? And what was that shift for you? How did that, how was it different than before?
I think that the main thing is like the person, like when I was with a partner that I felt completely free with, it just felt very mutual. Like there was mutual love, mutual respect, mutual, just everything. Like nothing felt pressured, nothing felt anything like that. And then going into a situation where like people were not necessarily like, like you have to do X, Y, and Z, but saying little things to hint towards you that you don't really have a choice. Like we're going to have sex right now and or this, like this or that kind of thing. And so then when you have those experiences so much, like my previous relationship was like that, where I felt a lot of times like I kind of had to, like, even if he didn't say like you have to, or it didn't look like necessarily throwing me on the bed like you're doing this right now, but it's just a situation of like dang, like I don't really feel like I have a choice here,
because if you didn't, there would be a whole issue.
Yeah, there would be an issue, or there would be like,
I've been in that before.
Like,
actually,
I'm gonna leave if you don't, so
level of pressure.
So it's like, so even though it's not in the physical aggressive way, it's in the way that like your words are aggressive. Like you're not creating a mutual space for the two of us here.
I feel like it's all an act. Like this, like sex in general, it's so much of a performance for so many people. And I think because like we have, the porn industry that's so accessible now, and a lot of people are learning from that, and it's not realistic. And so it's crazy how there's such a high percentage of women that have never even achieved orgasm. And I'm
Wild.
like, what?
Yeah.
And men think that there's certain things that they should be doing that are pleasurable. And then some women are either not speaking up, or they're doing things that they think will be pleasurable for their man, but then they're not doing anything to be able to have the pleasure for themselves. So it's like this dynamic of sex is like a performance for people.
Yeah.
And I think too, then you throw in the fact that if you have like a sexual assault, or you have that background, it becomes even more difficult to have like open lines of communication.
I agree.
It's so hard.
I agree.
It's a tough thing.
I know sex has been an issue in majority of my relationships, because I would go through this period of like, in the beginning, I'd be hypersexualized, and then like after like 2 months, and it just like died down, and I have no sex drive at all. Isn't that crazy? No sex drive at all. And then it would always be an issue of like, well, you're not initiating enough, and I'm like, because I don't have a desire. Like I'm literally not even thinking about it. And I would feel this pressure to have sex in order to appease them. Not like they were again, like not like they were like, you have to, but like I knew there were going to be some issues. Because I know in one of my relationships, he was like, because I said I wanted to abstain for a bit. And he was like, don't do this to me. And just like made it. And I was like, okay.
Do you feel like you're turned on in other ways though? Because like for me, it's not just about the act itself. Like I need to have that intimacy, that emotional, like what are you doing to like emotionally engage?
And I didn't realize that most guys didn't know how to do that or weren't. But I mean, now that I'm older and I know exactly what I'm looking for, I know what to look for and I know how to enjoy sex, okay?
It's so hard. Like we were talking before the show, like I can't even find a date. Relationships these days, it's so hard to date in 2023.
Yeah,
I feel like we're so connected, but we're so disconnected.
Yes.
And I can't even find someone that I'm like
connected in the wrong way.
Yes.
That's the issue.
That's
like,
draining.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it really is.
It is. There is a lack of like desirability that I think that people had, like thinking about like my grandparents and whatnot. Like they couldn't just get on the phone and see what the person is posting and what they're doing. Like you actually had like space to wonder about the person. Like you were building something because when you saw each other, it was special. And now people have so much access.
Yes.
That it's just
the paradox of choice.
Yeah.
When you have too much choice, people have a harder time choosing. So you live in a swipe left, swipe right generation. It is so easy to just be like, nope, yes. And then it never goes anywhere. Like if you've ever matched with someone, if you're on Bumble or Tinder, one of those websites, sometimes you match and they don't even say anything. It's like,
look, I'm one of those people. I'll be on there matching. I'm like, I don't feel like talking.
I change my mind sometimes because then I like really look and I'm like, I don't know, or if they message me like, oh, hey babe or hey angel, I'm like, no, I'm done.
Cringe.
We're not doing that.
Cringe. I also think there's just this huge divide between like men and women right now. But with people, oh, this is how women should be. This is high value man. Like there's just so much division. I'm like, what's happening? I think people forget that like some things aren't gender based. They're just people in general.
It's people based.
Like what?
Yeah, I know. I saw someone post this girl that I knew from college. She posted about the fact that like a lot of people emphasize that women are the prize, but don't emphasize the fact that men are prizes as well in terms of like just as much as like women can upgrade a man's life, a man that can love you the right way can upgrade your life as well. And I think that a lot of time, like we've gotten into this, it is so bad with like seeing these images of women getting flown out to all of these, private islands, and you have 1,000. Nobody, but I'm saying that people are comparing themselves to like celebrities,
social media.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so then they're like,
place.
oh no, well he gotta fly me out and he gotta get me 1,000 roses in my living room when I wake up and all of this other stuff. And it's like, that's not achievable.
Women, okay, I sometimes I get backlash on this, but I feel like women are part of the problem. It's not just men.
I agree.
Like you have to take some, okay, you can say, oh yeah, I want a 6-pack man that's 6'3" and has this and makes this amount of money. But A, what are you bringing to the table? And B, you're looking for a very small fraction of men that are available or probably married, or so you're going to be single for a long time if that's the only types of men that you will date. I had to open my repertoire. I can't just date, black men or white men. Now I'm looking, some of the Asian men looking good. There's some show on Netflix, all these like, oh my God, those Korean men. I'm like,
hold on a second now.
They are looking good. So I have to open my repertoire of the types of guys that, I will, date. And I think that too many women get so fixated on, I'm only going to date this type of person, and men too. And we're living in a society that everybody's just, single. There's no strong connections. And for me, I just like my biggest thing, I just wanted to learn, who I am as a person. What am I looking for? And I know what I'm not looking for. And until I meet that person that adds value to my life, I'm going to keep it moving.
I love that.
Yeah.
Look, I'm living by that motto now too, because I'm a single gal.
I love that.
I love that for me.
Yes.
Well, I love how we went on so many tangents and didn't even talk about what we were planning on talking about.
But it was so good.
It was so good, though. This was really insightful and just really fun to talk about, I guess. I loved all of this. So you mentioned things like love bombing, gaslighting, and these are terms that we're hearing all over the place now.
Yes,
and it makes
constantly.
me wonder if anyone's actually using it correctly. So if you will kind of talk about really both of those things or any other red flags and actually talk about the true definition of them, because I don't know what's going on.
So we hear the term love bombing and gaslighting. It's all over the internet. And it's not that those things don't exist or that they're not true, but I think that sometimes we're using them a little bit out of context. So, first of all, I think people are associating with narcissistic personality disorder. We hear like, oh, he's a narcissist or she's a narcissist. And everyone has narcissistic traits.
Yes.
All of us do on some level. But there are some people who are very high on the spectrum. And there's a very, very small percentage of people who actually meet criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. But when it comes to red flags on what to look for, now the love bombing. So love bombing is like when someone's coming at you super hard, super quick. And typically the reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to kind of get you sucked in very quickly and they want you to fall hard. So that way, the quicker they get you in, they can kind of keep you in. Here's the difference. We live in a society with Disney and movies and all of these shows that are like, we want the romance and we want to be like wined and dined and we want someone to be super romantic, and that's fine. But if you're meeting someone on date 1, date 2, date 3, and they're telling you like, I want to take you future faking to Paris. I can't wait to meet your parents. You're going to be amazing. There's a new show that I'm watching on Netflix. And one of the guys, as nice as he seems, he moves super quick. I can't remember the name of the show.
Was it on Perfect Match?
Yes, Perfect
You're
Match.
talking about Dom. I feel like you're talking about
It's
Dom.
Dom.
I'm sorry, Dom, if you're listening. I don't know
Love
you,
you,
but
Dom.
on the show, like he's moving super, super quick. And to me, that's a good example of kind of what love bombing can look like.
Yeah.
I love you. You're my soulmate. You're this, you're that. And to me, that is a red flag.
Yeah.
It takes time to get to know someone. If someone is coming at you that hard, you need to pump the brakes and take your time because you don't know that person. And the difference between there are situations where someone can genuinely be interested in you and maybe they move a little fast.
Yeah.
They might still have good intentions, but with love bombing, it's manipulative.
Yeah.
They're trying to get information in order to use that against you later. They're trying to get you sucked up. It's sucked in. It's more manipulative.
Yeah.
And then we hear the term gaslighting. Gaslighting is something that happens when someone is really trying to make you question your own reality. And you may find a number in your spouse's phone and then they're like, no, like that's my sister. That's why you got daddy issues. You're doing this because you have issues from your last relationship. I'm not him. They will say things to twist and contort your own reality to the point where you want to it makes you want to bang your head against the door. And you feel like,
Yeah.
Like,
is it me?
Why did I say that?
Am I going crazy?
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like. And so if you're in a situation, especially early on, and you may bring up something that bothers you and that person gaslights you or tries to twist it and turn it, that's a red flag. If they're going too fast, that's a red flag. If they can't communicate and have a simple conversation,
Jeez Louise.
that is a red flag. That is a red flag waving in your face because even if they may not be a terrible person, but if they just have more of an avoidant attachment style, meaning that they don't really want to have that intimacy and closeness and have those conversations, and they may kind of run from that. You can't have a healthy relationship if you don't have a good foundation to communicate when things happen. And I think a lot of people, when they see these red flags, they ignore them because they have that dopamine going. They feel the butterflies. But he does this and he does that, or she does this and she does that. So I'll kind of stick around and see where things go. And then you end up getting so attached that by the time it becomes like in your face, it's so much harder to leave.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people, just get clear on what you want.
Yeah.
Because if you can't get clear on what you want in a relationship with other people, how can you get clear with yourself and know what you want to attract? So say like, okay, I'm looking for this type of person and this type of person. I want this type of relationship. And if this person does not meet those requirements for you, you have to get comfortable with walking away in order to have long-term happiness. Sometimes it's going to feel like shit for a couple days, for a couple weeks. And you have to be okay with accepting the fact that I'm going to feel bad for a little bit because I did care about this person or I had high hopes. But you can't fall in love with potential.
Yes.
Ever.
Yes.
Ever.
Believe someone when they show you who they are or even tell you what they're looking for. Believe them. If they say, well, I just want to go with the flow. Okay. That means they may not give you what you want. If you want a relationship, believe them. Don't try to change their mind. You deal with what you're dealing with in the moment. Be clear with what you want with yourself. Be comfortable with walking away. But those red flags are always there in the beginning. And sometimes they're not going to be bright because sometimes people are very manipulative and it might be like a little yellow flag. We've all been there. Like I look back at some of my relationships. I'm like, red flag, yellow flag, red flag. And I would have saved myself a lot of years of heartache if I would have paid attention. But we live and we learn.
We do.
Right?
We live and we learn. We're growing beings.
We are.
That's what I keep telling myself.
We're spiritual beings living a human existence.
Man, we are having a human experience. Like, that is really it. But that was really good how you summed that up, because I think that people, like you said, like they throw those terms around so much, and it's something that we hear quite a bit, but I don't know if people fully understand the definitions of the words that they're utilizing, or knowing how to identify those things fully when they show up in their lives.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, even if you don't have to put a definition on things. If it doesn't feel good for you, then that's what you need to listen to. If you feel drained around someone, if you can't communicate with someone, if it doesn't feel good, then that's something to pay attention to. And you just got to get comfortable with that and being like, you know what, I'm not liking this. And you can express yourself, and if that person doesn't have to do anything, they don't owe you anything.
That was a lesson for myself too. That they technically don't have to do anything.
Facts. They don't. And like that for me, when I had to come to a realization that I can't force anyone to be the person I want them to be. They're either going to show up or they're not. And then I have to uphold the boundary. It's not up to them. I have to say, okay, well, that's my boundary. What am I going to do about it?
Because they'll continue to cross it. Like people will people will do what you allow them to do. So if you stay in that situation and you let them know that the thing that they did back then was okay because you stayed and you stuck it out, and you're like, okay, let's give them another chance. And then they keep doing the same thing and you keep letting them do it. It's like you're showing them that behavior for you is okay. It's not really crossing a boundary, because what happened when they did it, you got upset, went off for a little bit, and then what?
I think people forget that they have the power of choice.
They do.
And the power of action, saying no. But I know a lot of women struggle with saying no.
And mind you, we're not talking about abusive situations, because that's a whole other level of conversation. So let's put that out there.
That's a whole nother level.
So, we understand there are situations where you don't have a lot of options and choices. But I think, the point that we're trying to get at is that, we do have, there comes a point where you have to take responsibility for your boundaries and your healing, because we do teach people how to treat us. So
that was a hard lesson for me.
Me too.
I got it.
Me three.
I got it. I got it now. Like, I got it. Okay, well that was all good. That was really good. Okay, well now I just want to ask, like, what's next for you? Because you have the podcast going. You're a mental health professional. Like what else are we adding anything else here to the plate?
Oh God, I need to not add anything else.
I know we're adding.
But knowing me, I probably will find other things to add, because that's my trauma, as I'm like a perfectionist. So I don't know what's next. I personally want to see my podcast like number one. I would love to have you guys as my competition, because here's the thing, like there's not a lot of women who are dominating the podcast game when it comes to the self-help type of, subjects.
Crazy to me.
We have like the Call Her Daddy podcast and those bigger podcasts, which are great. But, we have the Jay Shettys and the Stephen Bartletts, and they're doing great. But I would love to see, more women empowerment. But more so, and we were talking about this before, more podcasters who have a genuine curiosity for humans and have a genuine curiosity to help, and who do it from an ethical standpoint. And that's what I love about your show.
Heavy on the ethical.
And that's what I love about this show, and why I'm so grateful even to be a part of this and be a part of your journey, is because I know you guys both come from a standpoint that you really have a curiosity of, helping other people, and you want to see other people do good, which is what we need. That vulnerability is going to take you guys so far. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for myself. I don't know where it's going to lead, because it is a lot of work, but I do know that I'm a healer. So whatever I end up doing, it's going to be helping in some capacity. But I try to stay open, because when 10 years ago, I thought this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And look where I'm at now. I never thought in a million years I would be, sitting here with people like you doing what I'm doing. So I'm grateful for the experience. But I will say this. try to stay in the moment. Because I have a hard time doing that. And sometimes we always think like, if we just get here, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
If I get the house, I'll be happy. If I get to show 75, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But we never stop to actually enjoy the process.
Yeah.
So try to stay in the moment.
I was
That's
just
me.
talking to Asia about that actually on the phone today. And I was saying how like we were talking to our other best friend, and we were talking about how a lot of times we forget the miracles that have been done in our life because we're so focused on getting to the next thing.
Yes.
Like right in front of our face, the very things that we've prayed for, that we've worked hard to achieve, we have them and then they pass us. And then we're just like, oh, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal because you've done it now. But you have to look and be grateful and be appreciative for all the little miracles that happen like every single day.
Yeah.
One day you're going to miss school.
Oh.
You're going to look back.
Oh, I want to see
You don't
that
think
day.
so? There's going to be times you're going to be like, I kind of miss it.
Because honestly, I never thought that I would ever be back in school. I was that kid in undergrad that was like, I'll never go back to school. And then I ended up in my master's program.
How old
which
are
is
you?
Wild, 27.
Oh, I think I was your age when I did it. And I had my daughter. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I am always amazed by people.
Yeah.
I have people in my cohort that have children while doing this. And I'm like, I am stressed on my own.
She used to come with me sometimes. And like I would even have my little UCF parties. And she was there. She'd come with me to the games and everything. And she became like part of the crew. But I look back and I'm like, I miss it sometimes. I miss the relationships that I made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, try to stay present. You'll miss it one day.
Like, you'll miss it one day.
Hang in there.
Keep telling yourself. Put that on a sticky note.
I think what I'll miss about this moment that I think that won't ever happen again is like some of the simplicity that I have in my day-to-day like work life. Like even though I don't always enjoy going into my job, when I get there, it is pretty simplistic. I have a pretty like laid back job that isn't super demanding. And I feel that I'm growing out of that space. And so when I look back on it, I can see myself being like, dang, like that was a way more simplistic time. Like I feel like I'm about to get into an era of hard work and discipline and all of that. And for the past like 4 years, I've been like blessed enough, lucky enough to have so much support to be able to like sustain during this time of being in grad school. So I can say that might be the part that I missed. The schoolwork,
Not so much.
not so much.
Simplicity is a
but-
blessing.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you something. I can't remember the last time my life was like more simplistic. There's always something on my calendar.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely, simplicity is a beautiful thing. Enjoy it now.
Yeah.
But the great thing is though too, delayed gratification. Sometimes when you have to delay that gratification and have that work in order to have, your goals that you're setting for yourself. You guys are on your way. I'm so proud of both of you. I've watched you guys like grow this podcast, and I see the way that you talk about it.
Yeah.
And I see the types of things that you talk about and the guests that you have. And you're both very vulnerable. And I think that's something that we don't see in a lot of podcasts. And I say that truly from the heart because I listen to other podcasts and you guys are going to go so far. I'm just proud of both of you.
That means so much, seriously, especially coming from you and like
Yeah.
all the help and support. Did we tell the story of how she helped us with the audio that everybody bullied us about when we were getting bullied?
She is
And-
the reason why our audio sounds better.
Yeah,
Like,
she gave us the tips of what to do and we were able to fix it. And that's something that is like really hard to find because when you're in an industry where a lot of people are like doing the same thing, it's hard for people to like lend out a helping hand and be able to be like, here, I'll help you. Like I've been there, I get it, So having that type of support and being like, just like that sense of community, that is so fulfilling. And like, I'm very grateful that we were able to find that in like building a connection with you.
Yes, we're not competitors. We are aligned. We are here for each other.
That's it.
Yes.
Oh God! Don't even get me
Thank you.
started on
I'm
that.
so grateful to just like connect with both of you, and that makes my heart happy. You guys are both like beautiful souls, and I just wish both of you all the best. You're gonna go far. I know it.
Look, you as well.
Yeah, you too.
I hope so.
We're all going
We're gonna
to
be
the
at
We're
the top.
seeing it. We're
We're
manifesting.
going to the top.
That's
All
part of the
us.
affirmations. We are going to succeed.
Look, she already going to.
Yes.
Wait, I have to say,
going
we are going to succeed.
Yes.
Do you have another one?
You're like, I don't have one.
I'm aligned with my purpose.
Oh, I'm aligned with my purpose.
I love that.
Let's wrap it up.
Oh, that's it?
That was beautiful.
Okay.
I have one, but it's corny. Actually, it's not corny. It's nice. Okay.
Go ahead.
I deserve fulfilling, respectful, and loving relationships.
I deserve fulfilling, respectful, and
and
loving
loving
relationships.
relationships.
I love that.
Yes.
Okay, guys. Well, I hope that you guys loved this episode as much as we did, because this was like really fulfilling and heartwarming. And I hope that you all were able to like learn and take something from this. So as usual, you can find us on TikTok. TikTok at Fill in the Blank Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Fill in the Blank _. YouTube, of course, so you can see the visuals at Fill in the Blank Podcast. And then you can follow me at As Told by Kayla, Ayana,
At Ayana.Amore.
and Keresse.
I am on Instagram at _Keresse, KERESSE_, and my podcast, Diary of an Empath.
Woo!
Yes, please check out her podcast if you guys haven't already. And we thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.